2020 has given us everything: major ups and downs, a global ongoing pandemic, and of course, a national election. And while the presidential portion of it was not decided on Election Day, here are 4 good things that we did see on Election Day. Starting with election security. Fears of cybersecurity interference ran high after what happened in 2016, when Russian military hackers tried to breach election systems in every US state, and they actually succeeded in a few, causing the US's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency this time around to ramp up its vigilance in efforts leading to the 2020 election. And it seemed to work.
Elections officials and federal law enforcement were very worried about both cyber attacks and misinformation going into this election coming from foreign sources. We heard from the FBI and the intelligence community that both Russia and Iran and maybe China had a vested interest in that misinformation piece. But when it comes to cyber attacks, we did not see what they feared, which was the ability of outside actors to try to influence the election online through cyber technology.
For voters who did head to the polls on Election Day, they were able to do so for the most part peacefully.
There were a lot of fears going into Election Day, especially because the president had said to his own supporters, I want you to go to the polls and keep an eye on what's happening. There was a lot of concern around the country that that could happen from one side or the other. Folks who would be waiting outside of polling places and be intimidating, having a chilling effect on people who were waiting in line to vote.
Because of it, folks like Kristen Clark, the president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, had her organization's efforts ramped up.
So we've got an incredible army of legal volunteers who work day and night, 7 days a week to help voters overcome these issues and challenges, and we will do this all day tomorrow and beyond.
In the end, overall, the day ran fairly smoothly. On Election Day, Clark told Politico, quote, "We've not seen major systemic problems or attempts to obstruct voting for voters. The problems we have seen have, for the most part, been isolated and sporadic." There were, of course, reports of the typical Election Day bumps and bruises, like technical malfunctions, and in certain states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Arizona, some polling places opened late. But for the most part, those issues were resolved quickly, and polling places were prepared with emergency paper ballot backups or extended hours. Another big takeaway from election 2020 was record turnout. The pandemic altered the way that many people chose to vote for this election, and with it, we saw more than 100 million Americans take part in early voting.
So voter turnout is estimated to climb, once all the votes are tallied, to 160 million votes. Compare that to just 4 years ago, it was only 137. By some estimates, this will be the highest voter participation rate since 1900.
According to Bloomberg, in this election, 42 states bypassed their 2016 voting total. Finally, on Election Day, we saw some pretty notable firsts outside of the presidential race, especially for LGBTQ candidates. In New York, with election wins for both Mondaire Jones and Richie Torres, they will become the first openly gay Black men in Congress.
It is a watershed moment.
I never thought as a poor kid from the Bronx that I would become a United States congressman.
In Delaware, Sarah McBride became the first openly transgender candidate elected to the state Senate. And in Oklahoma, Maureen Turner became the first non-binary state legislator and Muslim lawmaker in the state. While we didn't know the winner at the top of the ticket on November 3rd, Election Day overall ran more smoothly than in previous years. And with everything that 2020 has thrown at us, finally, that's some good news.